Today we're carving stones into bowls. These bowls are going to be for the restaurant at the hotel that I'm building right next to Joshua Tree National Park. This is my biggest project ever, and to be honest, it's been totally overwhelming. This is a 65-room hotel on 180 acres, built from steel framed modules that are fabricated outside of Toronto, Canada, and then shipped to California, where we use giant cranes to install them on site. As a co-founder and creative director, I'm really excited about the design process, but I keep looking for opportunities where I can be more hands-on and alleviate some of the stress by making some of the nice details. So after talking to our chef Al Rojas, we came up with this idea of stone bowls that could be chilled so that ceviche or ice creams can be kept nice and cool even during our hot summers. Let's start with a rundown of the fabrication process before we get into how we source our stones, how we test them for food safety, and what design changes we're going to make to the next batch. Let's start with a simple small ice cream bowl. I place a stone in the little sandbox I made, which holds the rocks nice and steady while I use my angle grinder for the fabrication. I like using a sandbox because curved stones are hard to clamp down, and you don't want the smaller ones moving around on you while you're working. I start by using a 4.5-inch diamond tile blade on my angle grinder. The first step is just to grind a flat bottom before flipping the stone over and making a bunch of cuts in a star-shaped pattern that will form the bowl itself. I'm using the 4.5-inch diameter blade to set the curvature of the bowl. This process leaves me with a bunch of triangular pieces that are easy to chip out with a hammer and chisel. This is where the brittleness of stone really works in our favor, and the whole process up until this point takes me about 5 minutes. Next, I switch to this slightly curved grinding wheel. I got this at Home Depot. It's made by Rigid, and it's great for turning that rough, broken surface into something a little bit smoother. It's about a 40 grit roughness, but it removes material really fast. I did make some bowls using just the tile saw blade, but that requires a little more of a steady hand because it's easy with that thinner blade to dig in too deep, and then you have to do more grinding to remove those cut lines. For the bigger ceviche bowls, I made cut lines in the form of a grid and then popped out these little pieces with the hammer and chisels as if they were kernels of corn or something. I smoothed out this bowl entirely with the tile saw blade just to see if it was doable, and it went okay, but I'm starting to see the limitations of using just these two attachments to the angle grinder. So I went online and started ordering more specialty attachments that are specifically designed for grinding stone, and I'll go over those and all the attachments and blades at the end of the video. I was concerned about the rocks cracking under the thermal shock of being back and forth between a dishwasher and then a freezer to cool them. So I sent them back and forth a few times, and so far so good. To seal them, I'm using multiple applications of a food-grade mineral oil. This is what I typically finish cutting boards with. And just like wood, the oil really darkens up the look of the stone. Depending on the size, I can make about 3 to 5 of them in an hour, which is pretty good, but I will need about 50 or 60 for the hotel. So let's go rock shopping, but first a word from the sponsor of this video, Subaru. Subaru hooked me up with a brand new 2025 Forester, and the timing couldn't have been better because this hotel project has me going all around Southern California. Furnishing an entire hotel means you're always getting different samples for the furniture and art pieces, then you need to archive the ones and put them into storage. For the stuff that we're building ourselves, there's constant material runs. And this Subaru Forester has done a great job of keeping my trusted team of Jesse and Shane safe and comfortable on these many journeys. This is the perfect vehicle for me. It can store a lot of cargo, but unlike a truck, keeps it safe and secure inside. And unlike a van, it's got quite a bit of pep, turns real tight, and it's done quite well on the dirt roads at the construction site. I've never built a hotel before, and projects this big are scary. So what I like to do is to break a big project down into a bunch of mini projects, and a lot of these involve short road trips with 2 people in my circle of trust. On this particular day, we picked up a load of plate steel in Palm Springs, went out to Whitewater to grab some more rocks. All these heavy materials built up quite an appetite, so we decided to stop by our favorite bakery, Luna. This is work, but it's also social for us. We get to see other artists and makers and tradespeople take pride in their work and who are always up for a little shop talk. Thanks to Subaru for sponsoring this video and joining our circle of trust. Check the link in the description to learn more about the 2025 Subaru Forester. These are some of the stones that I bought. They typically cost me between 35 and 40 cents per pound. And these ones vary in weight from 6 to just over 12 pounds. Carving them into bowls reduces some weight, but they're still on the heavy side for dishes, so I think I might take some more slices off of the bottom, which granted would make them visually a little less impressive because they'd be a little lower to the table, but I think that would bring the weight probably under 5 pounds. I think is good. A lot of people have asked why I don't use a larger concrete or stone saw to cut and carve the stones. I've tried it. I have this 9-inch Milwaukee, and it does cut a little bit faster. But what I gain in speed, I lose in control, and then I end up doing more grinding after the fact to kind of erase uneven depth lines. It's also harder to see where you're cutting, so for now I'll stick with the angle grinder. And speaking of angle grinders, here's a brief rundown of the different attachments and blades that I like. So these are the angle grinder attachments I like to use. This is just a basic blade for cutting stone or tile, and it's gotten kind of heat deformed over time. It's thin. I've learned to prefer the segmented blades. They just remove material faster and they're a little bit thicker, so good for carving. All these just go onto the angle grinder using my Ryobi HP brushless. There's also these types which just screw right on, so just like that, and I don't need the nut for them. Now these two things are pretty much equivalent. This one I got from Amazon and this one I got from Home Depot. For bowls, I like this one a little bit better. It's just a little bit wider on the edge and has a little more curvature. So for that kind of scooping and curving, I just prefer this one. Smaller versions for smaller crevices. And these I just got and I'm just starting to use. This is good for deeper sort of reach or smaller bowls. Same with these, and you can get a extension shaft, which is pretty heavy duty steel, and that just can give you a little more reach to really get down in there. This thing I haven't tried yet. I don't really know what to use it for. I think it's more for like, chamfering holes in countertops for faucets and whatnot. One other style of attachment is these, and these are good if you really want to get the bottom of the stones smooth and flat. They can grind perfectly flat, really thin edge, and a lot more surface of grit than a blade like this. Also, because these screw on, you don't need to have a nut on top of them, which sort of pushes you out from the material. So it's a good option to have, but all you really need to get started on the bowls is just this one at the bare minimum, but these two would be what I would kind of go with if I was going to get started on this type of work. We took this batch of stone bowls up to Chef Al's test kitchen. We wanted to see how some of the menu items for the Reset Hotel would look in them and see whether or not we need to make the bowl part deeper, shallower, bigger, or smaller. For the aguachile, which is sort of a ceviche type dish, we got no notes, and this is roughly the size we'll use. Overall, I think it looks really good, although I might use stones that have a little less green in them. I feel like the green of the garnishes is competing a little bit with the green of the stone. Our official taste tester, Jesse, gave it 2 thumbs up, and this is something I'm really excited to have on our menu. For desserts, we're going to have normal ice cream on the menu, but Al had an idea for a healthy version that's made out of ube, banana, and sweetened with dates, which are local to this sort of desert area. Color's amazing. It tastes somewhat like an acai bowl, but I think a little bit better, and it definitely would satisfy as a dessert or even as a breakfast with some granola and nuts. The feedback we got for the ice cream bowls is that they should be a little bit deeper. Just in case you're neglecting your dessert and it starts to melt, you want to be able to capture that melted stuff. The depth of the bowls previously was defined by the diameter of the blade, so I switched to a core drilling bit to cut a bunch of deeper lines that I can then chip out the pieces in between with, before switching to that diamond ball to smooth everything out again, and the extension arm really comes in handy here. One thing that we did do is that we took pieces of the stone that were cut off during the fabrication, and we sent those into a lab to do a series of tests to make sure that they're food safe. The tests are similar to what they do for new ceramic glazes, and they're really just looking for heavy metals and other kind of toxic contaminants. I love connecting these small handmade projects into a vision for something massive. Sure, it's just one little detail, but a hotel needs a lot of cool details. And I get really excited when I think about all the things we can build across this 180 acres. Thanks to Subaru for sponsoring this video and joining our circle of trust. And thanks to you for watching. And leave us a comment or a question about rocks or anything else.